Okay, good morning, everybody. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. I can see friends, compatriots, adversaries. I even brought the woman. So, good morning. My name is Mike Meade. I'm a Master Mariner. I qualified in DP operations. I used to work for Swire Pacific Offshore. Went into management with Swire. Ultimately chased the dollar and worked for Seco Holdings for 9 years. And then about 12 years ago, I set up M3 Marine. I'm here today with two hats on. I was supposed to be speaking to you this afternoon about eCMID and how a commercial consultancy uses eCMID in the marketplace. Unfortunately, Chris Baldwin, who I know very well and worked with on a number of projects, has taken ill, seriously ill. We wish him well and hope he gets better. Chris was going to talk about IMCA and the development of eCMID and why it came about. So I offered to take the mantle, so I will now do the IMCA talk, and I'll also do how we use the document in our consultancy, along with some other stuff. So this is more of an IMCA sales pitch than an IIMS pitch. And I don't know how to use the button. So the down button. There you go. No. Computer says no.
I had this problem yesterday. Wouldn't play ball.
That one.
No. You see, it was running fine earlier, Mike. What have you done? Never do it. Try that down button now.
Okay. Not a sales pitch, but M3 Marine, those who know us, I don't need a further introduction, but we have a brokerage, we have a consultancy business, and we do valuations. We're probably the most eminent valuer in the market at the moment, and that's increased given the downturn that we're at. The work that we do with IMCA and with eCMID comes under what we call expertise. I won't talk about brokerage, it's not relevant today. But within expertise, we have a team of in-house experienced marine engineers and master mariners who focus on adding value in all the projects we undertake. And we made a conscious decision in 2015 to make all of our surveyors AVI, and we completed that. There's a bit of a story there, actually, because I also put myself in to become an AVI, because I went through OVID and everything else. And as I went through the system, I sort of fell foul of it and started to fight it. In the end, I withdrew my application. The principal reason I withdrew my application was there was no way in the world I was going to go and do a CMID. And so it wasn't really worthwhile. But I wanted to use that benchmark of the Master Mariner, I do what the lads do. But
you were one of those challenging applications.
I was a challenging applicant. I'm always challenging. My staff will tell you that. So what are our strengths? We commit towards high quality work. We've got a sizable in-house team of experienced DP engineers, Master Mariners and surveyors. And we like to think we're quick to respond to queries and provide technical assistance. We're well versed with class requirements. We're passionate about IMCA, and we're passionate about MTS. Those are things we do. A lot of DP in there you'll see, but on the left-hand side, you'll see the array of inspections that we do, including eCMID, including OVID, and including all manner of other inspections and valuations. We'll now talk about IMCA. I'm not sure how many of you know what actually IMCA is. IMCA is the International Marine Contractors Association. It was formed in 1995, so it's in its 23rd year. It was formed by the amalgam of the Association of Diving Contractors and the DP Vessel Operators Association. So just by looking at the DP Vessel Operators Association and AODC, you can see its underwater, its construction, its dynamic positioning, and that's the focus, always has been the focus. We've changed CEO and technical director recently, which led to a new legal structure and form of corporate governance. We now have a larger board of directors. We don't have a council anymore, and the board is the ruling body of IMCA. We've got a very clear reporting structure. We've got a smaller overall management committee, which they're now called an operations committee. We've got slightly smaller technical committees, but there's more of them. We have fewer elections. We used to spend half our life voting for chairman and vice chairman in the regions. We've gone away from that. We've now evolved power to the regions. The regions pick their own chairman and vice chairman. So the EGM in November of last year ratified all of these changes, which became effective on the 1st of January of this year. So previously we were unincorporated. We're now got a holding company, and we're incorporated. And we used to have a company called IMCA Trading Limited, which was effectively a charity where the shares were held in trust, that sold that logbook that you've got. It's now under IMCA Holdings, and it's a company, and it trades. And there's no change to the public face. The logo's the same, the name's the same, and they're both trademarked. It's worthwhile showing you this slide so you can see how it's structured. Effectively, the boys in blue are what we pay for. So if you're a member of IMCA, you're paying for the boys in blue, which is the board, the CEO, and the secretariat, of which Chris Baldwin is a member, based in London. We then have an operations committee, which is made up of members. So it's pro bono. You do it for the love of the industry. We have core committees that go across all of the divisional committees. So the core of the business is diving, marine, offshore survey, and ROV. And each of those has representatives in HSSE, contracts and insurance, competence and training, lifting and rigging, and marine policy and regulatory affairs. Lifting and rigging used to be under marine, but it became so preeminent in our business. If you look at the amount of accidents and incidents involving cranes, it was decided to make it a core competence of IMCA. Likewise, marine policy and regulatory affairs, we have observer rights at IMO, and we have a team of people in London that attend IMO and attend the engineering and the marine legislation committees, and we're involved. If you read certain pieces of ISO legislation now, IMCA documents are referred. So although they're guidance, they're becoming law. Regionally, we're in Asia Pacific, Europe and Africa, Middle East and India, North America, South America. Technology committees is a new thing, and we don't have any yet, but I can tell you the first one will be digitization. The regional committees, under the previous constitution, as I mentioned, we had this array of elections. Instead, now we've got 5 regional committee elections. The new regime establishes small committees who select their own chairman and vice chairman. And the constitution states that we can nominate representatives, which is unchanged in the new regime. So if we need an expert on ROV, an expert on marine, an expert on diving, we can co-opt them into the committee. And the Asia Pacific regional election was taking place in March. Our current chairman is Steve McMillan, who's from Unique Systems, and our vice chairman is Jaap Zwicker from Haribo. I'm the marine representative. Simon Binsted's the diving representative, and for the life of me, I can't remember who is ROV and survey. Within IMCA, the grey boxes are the people in the secretariat who are responsible for the core committees, the divisional committees, and the regional committees. And if you just focus on the marine, which is the second box from the right, you'll see within there, that's where the IMCA eCMID framework falls. It's under Chris Baldwin. He's got a joint industry steering committee, which encompasses not just IMCA membership, but they're working now with OVID, which is a good thing, with OCIM, and the regulatory authorities around the world. From a membership perspective, roughly, it's just under 1,000. It's Eurocentric, always has been Eurocentric. It was formed in Europe, but the growth in IMCA has been in Asia. Asia is now the second largest membership group, about 237 people, and certainly the most vocal and certainly the most enjoyable. If you ever come to an IMCA meeting in Asia, it's quite powerful, it's quite interesting, it's quite engaging. It can be quite staid in some of the other regions, but so it's about 1,000 people across the globe. We issue guidance documents. The guidance documents, there's over 200 of them, and 100 of them are related to marine. It's written by members, it's best practice, and it becomes adopted. So we've got guidance in competence and training, safety, diving, offshore survey, remote systems, and ROVs, and marine. And some of those documents go back as far as the late 80s when DPVOA was in existence. The delivery of the guidance that we issue, and it's, as I say, it's written by the members, for the industry. It promotes good practice across the worldwide offshore industry. It's adopted by contractors, clients, and regulators. So it's a self-regulation by the industry. The most interesting thing for me is the amount of oil companies that adopt IMCA guidance, they put it into their contract, it becomes mandatory. So de facto becomes law. It's referred to in contract terms, as I mentioned, the likes of BP, Shell, all the big IOCs and NOCs will use IMCA guidance in contracting. It helps raise standards of safety and efficiency through application of the members' cumulative experience in global operations. If I look at some of the key documents that IMCA produced that we would use in our day-to-day business, I sort of highlight the marine documents that we use. So if you look at the International Guidelines for the Safe Operation of DP Vessels. It's an MSF document. It was put together by the Marine Safety Forum in the UK and IMCA. And so we decided to issue that as an MSF document, even though it's looked after, it's administered by IMCA. And then we look at guidelines for DP vessels. FMEA is very eminent in what goes on in DP today and it's strengthening. We can go down the list. You can see the asterisked documents are the ones that we use day to day. And of course, within that is the eCMID, which is issue 10, which I think was July of last year. We also do a lot of diving work, auditing and inspections, and also ROV. If I look at the MSF 182 revision 2, the safe operation of DP vessels, it's about safe operations. And these are international guidelines. It's produced by a cross-industry work group, which IMCA administer, and it's based on specific characteristics of DP-equipped OSVs. The purpose is to make risk management tools available to vessel operators, charterers, masters, officers, etc., ensure safe operation of DP offshore vessels in the DP mode. And efforts have been made to ensure compatibility with existing documents wherever possible, and the document is going to be revised every 3 years. So that's operations. Then we look at design. One of the cornerstone documents in IMCA is M103. It's just been revised in April 2016. It's a highly respected IMCA document. You find it in shipbuilding contracts, you find it in term charters, and you find it in oil company recommendations. It went through a major rewrite. We had to put a sizable team together to work the rewrite. We then contracted it out to one of the major consultancies to put it all together. And it took nearly 2 years to put this document together. The rewrite, it was a rewrite of an existing document. So it gives generic design guidance and focuses on methods for creating fault-tolerant DP systems based on redundancy. It's got generic operational guidance, and it focuses on current good industry practice and draws from existing operational experience across the industry. And it's got vessel-specific type guidance. You mentioned 7 earlier. I think later you'll see it's closer to 17. So within the design of the vessels, we talk about 17 DP vessel types. And you'll see them all on the right there. Most will be familiar to the guys in the room. Going furthermore on M3103, in short, there's a lot of technology stuff went into it about heading sensors and redundancy and cross connections, which I'm not going to go into now. But it's a powerful document. If you've not read it, if you don't carry it in your bag, carry it in my bag. It's well worth having in your armory of documentation. We can talk a lot about FMEA, but I won't. I think this is going out to the members, so I will leave it to you. But IMCA M166 is another cornerstone document, and it's guidance on FMEA. It's a highly respected document, again, written into contracts, shipbuilding contracts, oil company contracts. Powerful, easy to use, proactive engineering, quality tool. It's assisting the identification and countering of weak points in the early design phase of products and processes. We have seen the world's most awful FMEAs in Southeast Asia. And it's been a growing business for the competent consultancy firms to get it right. One of the things that maybe you don't know about yet, Mike, is that we're working within IMCA to put together a competency scheme for FMEA auditors and practitioners, which will...
It's something that's been mentioned twice this year by people on our various rounds.
Yeah, we're having a workshop here in November, an IMCA Marine workshop. One of the topics for half a day will be about FMEA auditing and FMEA practitioners. So that went through a full rewrite in April 2016 and now includes industry good practice and use of FMEA techniques when applied to technical systems associated with OSVs and in particular DP systems. An update of the regional document, which was published as early as 2002. And the 4 sections and appendices are designed to be read separately or as a single document. And the sections and appendices are just outlined on the right. We look at 190, which is developing DP annual trials programs. That is a growing business. It was last revised in March of this year. And what we did was we incorporated some other documents that were out there because we had too many documents. So what we tried to do was corral them all together. So we've got how to write an FMEA and now how to conduct annual trials on FMEA. And that's what we've done. So the guidance document describes development, conduct, management of DP annual trial programs for all types of vessels, DP1, 2, and 3, and also modules. The vessel operator's responsibility to comply with IMO Circular MSC 645, which is the IMO's design of DP vessels, which is currently being rewritten, and we won't see it for another 2 years. And IMO requires an annual survey records the vessel's ability to keep position after single failures associated with the assigned equipment class. And this can't be done if equipment failure isn't tested. Equipment failure testing is not carried out. There is another document which is an example of a DP FMEA for a new DP vessel to help the industry show what best practice is. So there's just a lot of DP FMEA stuff in here. Operational activity planning is growth, it's risk management, risk assessment. We hear the terms CAM, O, TAM, O, risk assessment all the time. We now have guidance notes to do with that, and it provides a brief overview of tabulated methods. It's increasingly being used in planning and execution of offshore marine vessel projects. I don't see any of them going ahead without CAMOs and TAMOs and God knows whatever else they have, and applies to all sectors of the offshore marine sector. I'm sure it's going to come into the wind sector. I don't think it's quite there yet. And it's generally applied to DP vessels, but the processes described can be also applied for non-DP vessels. So we talked about CAM, TAM, ASOG, and it addresses the vessel systems, equipment configuration, appropriate to location, and the activity the vessel is undertaking, whether it be critical or whether it be task appropriate. It defines the variable limits in equipment and operational parameters for location and the specific activity in an ASOG, and defines the actions to be taken by the operator in response to faults and deteriorating conditions and performance identified in the appropriate risk-based documentation, and presents the guidance to the DPO in a user-friendly tabular format. If I was a ship owner, I would urge my ships to do their own, but most of them don't. Most of them hire guys like us to do it. So it's unfortunate, but that's the way the industry's gone. So I suppose the key for today is eCMID, Common Marine Inspection Document. It's been, I think it's in its 23rd year. No, IMCA's its 23rd year. This is its 17th year. 17th year. I think I wrote it down actually. Hold on, before I came here. It's in its 18th year. So it's now version 10. It provides a common inspection process, standardized format for vessel inspection reports. And the key always has been to reduce the frequency of inspection. And we failed at every step of the hurdle. I remember doing CMIDs myself. You'd walk on a ship and you'd be the 6th inspector doing a CMID on that ship in that year. So the purpose of eCMID is to get away from that. We butted heads with OCIMF for many years, and that's part of the reason why the CMID inspector program came about, because OCIMF said, we want credible certified inspectors, and our CEO at IMCA at the time said, no, we don't do that. So they went off and formed their own scheme, and actually their own scheme today is ahead of our scheme, but it's different. You can't do what you said. You know, if you're an operator and you've had your CMID, and then you want to go for a job and you want to show the operator your CMID, you can do it. With an OVID, you can't. The oil company has got to pay to see your OVID. So it's very different.
The oil company are employers usually who are only the OCIMF members who are operating fields.
Mm-hmm.
It's their requirements as field operators to have OVID done. The CMID is not necessarily that.
But like all big companies, you know, people are responsible for certain things. I'm sure in oil company A, the guy that interfaces with OCIMF has got the password and the whatever. But the logistics guy at the base who wants to hire a supply boat for a cargo run, he wouldn't even know where an OVID was, let alone where OCIMF was. So those are the guys that you can target with your eCMID and say, look, I've had one done in the past year. Here it is. Here's the link. Go and have a look at it. The CMID provides a snapshot only of the state of the vessel. Inspectors can only report on what they find during the inspection. It's not a subjective overview of, you know, your view or your opinion or whatever. It's a snapshot of what you see. It's designed to be a live document. Keeping it updated can ensure that safety and environmental management systems integrity is sustained, so the minimum amount of work is required at subsequent inspections, and it can be used by the crew for internal preparation prior to an inspection. I mean, let's not forget, when you were a young captain and I was, we didn't need this. You know, we were trained to look after our ships. The modern ship, they're not. They have to have guys like us to come along and vet them and audit them. And it's not just eCMID, it's OVID, and it's P&I Club, and it's Flag State, and it's Class, and it's God knows who else. In the old days, you used to know what you were doing. Actually, if you apply the crew to do a pre-eCMID, it actually is quite good for them to go around a ship and have a look and, you know, open that firebox they've never looked in before and get the FMEA out of the drawer that they haven't looked at for a year. It's not intended to assess a vessel's suitability for industrial operation. That's another scope of work completely. You know, whether you're going to J-layer pipe, S-layer pipe, do a 3,000-ton lift, that's not what the eCMID's for. eCMID is a snapshot of its safe operational performance, and it's intended to assess the vessel's operational safety status. You examine all aspects of safety management system in place on board the ship and include any observations with regards to vessel's internal structural integrity, safety of its personnel, and its compliance with environmental protection standards. So it has 17 sections and 16 supplementary sections for the vessel types. I was wrong, it wasn't 17. It's actually, there's not 16 vessel types, because within there you've got helidecks and God knows what. It may be used as a basis for inspecting any type of vessel covered by the eCMID criteria, normally over 500 gross tons or more, and over 24 meters in length. If it's below that, we advise that you go to the M189, which is the marine inspection for small workboats. And that's designed for vessels less than 24 meters in length or less than 500 gross tons. However, rigid adherence to these specifications is not mandatory, and it's with agreement between the vessel operator, client, inspector to select the most appropriate inspection process tool. I can tell you now, the operators that we do eCMID for would never use marine inspection for small workboats on a crew boat. They want it to comply to the larger boat criteria. So that's the 17 sections. I won't bore you. I think you all know them. You know, to do with particulars and safety management and personnel and the bridge and the engine room and towing equipment and whatnot. Interesting is the supplementary sections, where it talks about specific vessel types, but it also talks about DP. It talks about helidecks, and it talks about heavy lift and those sort of things. Again, it's not talking about the job the vessel is intended to do. It's about the specification and does it comply to the rules, regulations, and criteria. This is a nice thing I like about the new website. If you go to the eCMID website, if you're doing an audit, when an inspection is requested for a vessel, the requesting company should first ascertain the date when the last eCMID inspection was conducted and review if the report is available and permitted to be used by the vessel inspector. So when you go into the website and you press the button, you get an alert if a eCMID has been done within the last 12 months. That's a great, positive, proactive tool for me. Because if you get that alert that says, well, do I really need to do one? This is the outcome. Does this guy need to do an inspection? Doesn't mean to say he doesn't, but it's a nice little tool to say, you know, the principle of the eCMID is we do one per year. So if you hiring this boat, say, oh, my box says I've got to do a eCMID. If you go in here and you've got one, that might save you a couple of $1,000 or more. So you get an alert when it's less than 12 months old and already exists in the system. So if it's more than 12 months old, a new inspection is normally required, will be conducted. Reviewing a previous report does not indicate that the updated inspection is not required. It may be, even if it's less than 12 months old, because there may be things in there that you as the client don't like. But you should at least be taken into consideration when assessing the degree and the extent of any further inspection requirement. A competent and independent third party should conduct the inspection. Mike mentioned talked about the AVI, but come the 1st of January next year, you'll have no choice. But an accredited AVI who's registered with IIMS has a valid in-date accreditation and on the new eCMID vessel inspector database and the new new website, which is relatively new. If you clicked on that link, you go to the old website. AVIs have full IMCA recognition support. There's collaboration with IIMS to put it together. Maintains inspector currency. IMCA is constantly issuing safety flashes, IMO updates, and other regulatory authority information. Going forward, we see expansion into other levels, warranty surveys, and FMEA practitioners and auditors and surveyors. And under the Code and Conduct and Inspector Competency Framework, expected that the AVI is capable of inspecting and completing any eCMID, including the challenging one, which we see as bringing a vessel out of layout. Now, that doesn't mean to say that any AVI can inspect any vessel, because your AVI is limited to the vessel type that you're qualified for. So, you know, if you've got to have that pipe lay qualification on your AVI certificate to go and do a pipe lay CMID. We touched on statistics earlier. It is growing. It hasn't grown as fast as OVID, but we're catching up. And I'm very pleased that the OCIMF OVID OMOG, as they call it, the Offshore Marine Operators Group, are now working closely with IMCA, and there's collaboration going on. And I'm pretty sure next time I speak to you, there'll be a sharing of information, a sharing of databases. Hopefully we get one report per year. That's the nirvana. Yeah, we get one inspector to do one report per year. So you can see the CMID's uploaded to the eCMID database. It's just coming up to 1,000. It may even be 1,000. This is a couple of weeks old. And there's 1,723 vessels on the system out of a pool of about 5,500 globally. So we've got a way to go to get more vessels into the system. Competence assurance of vessel inspectors conducting an eCMID has been addressed through the development of AVI, delivered by IIMS, and the AVI scheme was established in 2015, and we've now got 239 AVIs from 39 countries. And we talked about the ISO 1901 guidance on auditing and management systems, follows the guidance of recognized international bodies, such as International Register of Chartered Auditors, and you're going to be audited at some point in the future. So from the 1st of January 2018, IMCA will only recognize formal inspection reports, eCMID reports conducted using the eCMID database, and only AVIs will be able to use the inspector function of the eCMID database to conduct authorized CMIDs and small workboat inspections. So we're looking at eCMID version 10 and the small workboat version 2, and that's what it's all about. So we've changed the ISM configuration. The supplements are all in there. You can now add the supplements into your eCMID report. You can add photographs. There was a debate on whether do we or do we not add photographs. Personally, I think there should be photographs. Photographs is 1,000 words, and it's secure. And the owner has the option whether or not he shares it with whoever he wants to share it with. Just before I close and ask you for a few questions, there are other things that people do with IMCA, just not eCMID. So if we look at diving, we look at diving equipment systems inspections and guidance notes. So we have air diving inspections, we have sat diving inspections, and we have portable diving system inspections, and they apply anywhere in the world. It's very highly regulated diving, and also within IMCA. It's the one part of IMCA where the Secretariat inspect the contractor. As a marine member of IMCA, you're not inspected. As a diving inspector, as a diving member, you are. And there's a picture of some saturation diving stuff and what we do. And then also ROV. So IMCA also has a framework of ROV inspections. That's about it from me, really. I know I had about an hour, but that's probably about half an hour. But any questions? Any questions about IMCA? Any questions about surveys? Any questions about what we do day to day? Any questions about how IMCA eCMID has been accepted by the contracting community in Asia? Contractor to contractor, because that was always the strength of CMID, was as a contractor, whether you're a Subsea 7 or a Technip or a McDermott, you could never have an OVID. You can now, they're changing. So you had to have a CMID.
Like the 1,723 on the register and the database, are they geographically, you know, my imagination said Europe and Asia probably got more in that database than, say, the Americas?
For sure. The Americas have been very slow in adopting anything to do with this and anything actually to do with IMCA in general. Certainly North America. Brazil has been very proactive, but North America not so. It's actually one of the challenges that IMCA has, is to get more acceptance in North America.
Middle East?
Middle East, quite strong. Middle East and India. Middle East and India comes under one sort of grouping within IMCA. And IMCA is quite strong in the Middle East and India. Yeah.
Do you think there'll still be a tendency though for people to bypass the database? And there will be ways and means of getting hold of the model version of that if you cannot see it. And
I think the thing I worry about, it's not the new version, it's the old version. A lot of the oil companies have got the old version, and some of them have tailored it to their likes. And so it becomes a subjective document. It's got an IMCA thing on the front, so people think it's a eCMID. Actually, it's not. And come the 1st of January next year, IMCA will proactively tell the industry it's not.
it's not just the oil companies that are doing that.
It's intel, yeah, you've seen it yourself. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Newer vessels which are not listed, or new contractor, or no one procures the vessel, say, you can't have an eCMID uploaded for a brand new vessel that's not listed.
Well, you've got to put the information in the system for a start. And what we find with a lot of new owners who aren't members of IMCA is, the client will say to them, oh, you need a eCMID. What's a eCMID? So we'll go and have a look at this website. Oh, we've got to join. You don't have to join. All you have to do is be proactive, register yourself, put your vessel in, so then the oil company can nominate an inspector, and then off you go and inspect the ship.
The vessel is not put in.
Has to be put in. Has to be put in by the owner.
Yeah. So we see several of those because the information that the owners have is not complete, or they don't really go into it. Although the ones that we did in the past are IMCA members, they were struggling.
Yeah.
So to say. So, my personal observation is that probably a little bit more communication needs to go out about how to list your vessel, if it's a new vessel or it's new procurement and things like that. At least in the Middle East, there is a need for them to be a bit more informed. The other aspect we see is during the eCMID inspection, inevitably they're actually downloading the IMCA news bulletin, and of course, before the inspection finishes, they have them, so it's not a finding anymore. But inevitably, they're doing it at the time. Is there any way where you can push this out to them on the vessel directly? I know you must be sending it to your contractors who have, let's say, 10 vessels operated under them, but if there is a update of certain IMCA procedure or
Guidance notes.
note, you can go directly to the vessel. I think it will be a great help.
Well, one of the things we did about 5 years ago, we made all of IMCA guidance notes free to user. When we initially did, we just opened the website and say, if you want to get an IMCA guidance note, go on. However, because of sanctions, mainly America, Russia, and Iran, we've had to change that so that if you're a non-member of IMCA, you can still get the documents for free, but you have to register your email address. And then as long as it's not sanctioned, then you can get the documents. So if a ship owner is proactive himself, all he needs to do is tell his ship to log on, and you can download whichever documents you like. And the website's quite easy. It's sorted out into marine, diving, ROV, survey.
We encourage them during the process of the inspection to do that. Some of them they can download straight away. Some of them they need the password to go through as members only and download them.
The only thing you need a password for is minutes of meetings and committees. All of the guidance notes are free to download. Yes, Stephen.
Yeah, because I think I said what the plan is trying to say is I'm not sure about today. The previous version of eCMID, there's two versions of it. When operator is, for example, there's a call. Operator, there's a CMID inspector coming to your vessel tomorrow. You're gonna do an eCMID inspection. So, it's too late. I can't register the vessel in time, for example. And there used to be a function where you can the inspector himself can create the inspection without the owner registering the vessel. So you can bypass all that, and then you can create new vessel. But the only problem is When that happens, it will be a blank template. Then the inspector will spend an additional an hour or two to fill up the vessel, what we call it the OVPQ
in OVID, yeah.
So the vessel certificate expiry date issued a renewal, and there's about 30 of those. It's a long list.
My understanding is, I'm not part of the eCMID work group, but my understanding is we're trying to simplify the CMID to take away a lot of that, what I call OVPQ stuff. For example, the crew matrix. You don't need to put every captain and every, just need to make sure that they're in compliance. Likewise, certification, you should be able to look at the class status and work out, where the deficiencies are.
There's a few things on that, because I did a few as well. It's learned and progress. For example, there is a difference between 9 and 10, because 9 was already a 10. So you're right, that crew list, actually they simplify. You don't need the captain name.
Yeah.
You just need rank, DB, yes, no, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But however, in the software, there is a column where there is a captain name.
Yeah.
So unknowingly, you spend half an hour to fill out all the names, and then when you create the PDF version, the name is not generated. So you are beginning, I spent half an hour for nothing. That's one thing. And the other thing is the certificates. Of course, some have an issuing date but no expiry date, especially those like it's a lifetime certificate that managed. So they ask whether expiry, yes, no. If it's no expiry, just put a no, and then it goes on. But however, that is normally an operator job. That's an OVPQ. So I think moving forward, I believe the system will be, like what you mentioned, the operator has to take responsibility to fill out that information. Otherwise, you can't have otherwise you can't commission a eCMID. But that is not yet. So now that is all done by the inspector himself. He has to see the date of the certificate individually, and if the vessel. And the other challenging part is you probably will find 4 tight water operator in the system, because the system, like for example, if a new operator you have over there, you have like the number of operators is 1,000, but out of the 1,000, there are probably 10 tight water. Every single tight water offices in the world have a registration. Unlike OVID, where it's just the control, because one company, one username that is given. But in eCMID, you're probably wondering, there are 10 different tight water, and one of the tight water Brazil, tight water Singapore, and some of them are empty, no ships. So when
that's relevant actually. I don't think there's any ships in tight water Singapore.
So I think there is a few things that are to think about.
Yeah. I mean, it's an iterative system. It's evolving, and it's evolving. I just urge anybody who has a problem like you're talking about to send an email to IMCA, and they will try and sort it. I mean, Ryan Foley and Chris Baldwin are very proactive. I mean, they're passionate about this stuff.
It's improving.
Yeah.
It's getting better.
It's playing catch up. I mean, OVID took us to the test, and they started to run away, and we needed to get the CMID back on track, because it's our document as contractors. It's our document, whereas OVID is their document. So, we needed to work with the client to make sure that we were producing a rigid system with qualified people that they could accept. And I think we're getting there.
It's also getting people to understand the difference between OVID and CMID.
Yeah. And who can do an OVID and who can't, and who can see an OVID and who can't. Okay, any other questions before we adjourn for coffee?
Have you come across a situation where there's been a CMID inspection by an AVI, and very soon there has been also an OVID inspection called?
I think that's quite regular. That's probably the norm.
Why do you think we're here? I mean,
OVID inspection usually supersedes, or the findings usually are seen as more detrimental for the vessel's employment. Why can it not be the other way around? Although I'm pretty up to my head with the comprehensiveness of the eCMID document, but in terms of the seriousness of findings, and OVID clearly has an upper hand.
Yeah.
Can this be turned around? Will it ever be turned around? I know they're employers and they're the file majors and everything, but I'm just saying, what can be done towards that thought process?
I just think if you're passionate and you're an IMCA member, become part of the IMCA CMID work group and get involved, and because it's our documentation, you know, it's written by contractor members, administered by contractor members, and it's grown and it's developed by contractor members. It's not something that you go and buy; it's developed by ourselves. So.
I was here in the regional working group. I was one of the members here. So Alex Van Houston was here back in March. There was a seminar here in March. So there was a question by us and asked, what is the future? And then the answer is no. It's OVID will still supersede all the CMID or anything that we have.
That's okay as long as you're a member of OCIF and that's what you want to do. But if you're Technip or Subsea 7 or McDermott, or if you're BP don't want that to happen. So it's tailored to the individual. But one thing Alex should have said is that we are now talking to IMCA and we're hoping to harmonize the systems.
Yes,
because that's what's happening at the coalface.
Yeah, actually he did mention that. He said that's why the new CMID is developed very similar concept to OVID accreditation and OVID.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar, hoping that moving forward they'll be just talking to each other.
Yeah. I mean, there are some updates on the IMCA website. I just printed them before I came out. That just talks about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're trying to get closer to OCIMP to try and prevent this multiple auditing and the difference between the audits. We're all trying to do the same thing. We want safe operations. That's what we want. It's not an us and them. It shouldn't be an us and them, but it's developed into an us and them. Yes, Ken.
Yeah, I was at the leadership forum in Perth last week, and I met with one of the GP members. I just spoke about the OVID and the CMID, and it says as long as the CMID, the owners have still got 30 days before they release, they can take up the 30 days to release that document, we will still keep going for audits. As long as they can keep that 30-day option in there for owners before they actually go, it comes an automatic release to whoever's trying to run that better. If the oil company gets a CMID, it goes automatically to the vessel owner. The vessel owner can have up to 30 days, even if you've done that CMID and the end client's oil company, and that when you've done that CMID and you've put the oil company email address for them to get a copy, they won't get a copy until the owner releases it. And the owner can have up to 30 days. And I wouldn't say which oil company it was, but if it turns out it says, well, that option's still there, I'm going to get an OVID done because I'll get it right away.
Yeah. I forget what the criteria was. OVID's something similar, right? The OVID's done, it goes into the system, and
yeah, it was just the owners, the oil company gets an extra.
yeah, straight away. Yeah.
But 14 days to publish it. Basically, it goes to the oil company, they vet report, they come back any comments to us, and they publish it. The operator's got 14 days to respond. Even if yes, it's acceptable, and then of course it's in the system, right?
Yeah. But then if another oil company wants to have it, they've got to buy it. Yeah. Okay.
I must forget another presentation. Can you do it again?
Sure. Okay.
Mike, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. What time is it?